welcome to the MacIver Report. This is our weekly podcast where we go over some of the content that we've produced over the week here at the MacIver Institute. We're posting tons of stuff these days because tons of stuff is happening. So we know it's hard to keep up. We don't want you to miss anything important. It's all important, but this is our opportunity to talk a little bit about the most important things that are on our radar. And I am joined as always by my colleague
Mike Lucas, policy analyst,
who's a little under the weather and sitting a little bit lower in his seat than I expected when I set the camera. That's fine. I'll adjust it again. I do that electronically. So why don't we just dive right in here to hang on. All right. Yeah, let's dive right in here to our list of topics. So first off, this is the biggest story of the week. I want to say it's the biggest story of the month, but
who knows what could happen.
Yeah, I don't want to be presumptuous, but ROFR is back. This is the right of first refusal. This gives Wisconsin transmission companies first dibs on all transmission projects in the state. Spoiler alert, there's only one transmission company in the state. It's American Transmission Company, ATC. This is Senate Bill 28. It was introduced this week on Wednesday, February 12th. It's sponsored by two people, just two. That's interesting. Senate Majority Leader Devin Lemieux and Assemblyman Kevin Peterson. There'll probably be more people throwing their names on the bill as it progresses. But Mike, why don't you tell us a little bit about this, because this has really been your main issue here.
Yeah, so we in and around the Capitol have been anticipating this for quite a while, and the reason we've been anticipating that ROFR legislation would be reintroduced is because last session a ROFR law was introduced and it was defeated. It never made it to a vote. It sort of died in committee. But that was somewhat of a big initiative being pushed in the legislature. And given what's going on with transmission right now in the MISO regional grid, which is the mid-continent grid, we were expecting that this would make a return, and it has. So previously, Dan O'Donnell had written a couple of pieces on this legislation last time around, and very, very good articles. And MacIver said a lot about this right of first refusal. So, just to put it simply, what this legislation would do is, if passed, if signed into law, any competitive projects that are approved by MISO would, by default, be guaranteed to Wisconsin's transmission company, ATC, the American Transmission Company. The reason ATC wants this legislation is because they are the only electric transmission company in the state, which means that they would get for themselves 100% of these projects, which would otherwise be competitively bid projects. So that's the simple reason for it.
So, we're going to want to talk about how, this impacts costs a little bit. But I think first I want to pull this up because we need to, this is a point that not a lot of people really understand, that we need to continually, bring up. And the question is, how do power companies make money? And your option, there are two options here. So do you think that A, power companies make money by generating electricity? Or do you think power companies make money by building power plants?
Most people think it's the former. It is not. It's the latter. Utilities make their money, their profits, by building stuff. Doesn't matter what they build.
And why is that? Because that's not how the free market works.
Right. So the reason this is the way that they make their profit is because, first of all, it's a statute. It's written into state law, and I think the statute is 134 point something. It's been a while since I've looked at the statute. But I wrote an article on this exact issue last year. It's called The Green Conspiracy. And I went on Vicki McKenna's show and I talked about how utility companies make their money. The way Wisconsin statute is written is that the rate of return, or the return on equity, which is the profit that a utility company is allowed to collect, is determined by how much infrastructure they build. That can be transmission lines, power lines, distribution lines. That could be, warehouses, garages for their vehicles. But most importantly, it's power plants. And so
Now, power plants doesn't just mean coal-powered power plants.
No, any kind of electric generating facility.
AKA.
So that's coal, natural gas, and solar and wind. And mostly solar in Wisconsin. Wind hasn't really taken off here. Solar is the one that the utility companies are going for. So if you understand that utilities make their profit by building more stuff and are not earning profit based on the quality of their service to consumers, us, people who consume electricity, ratepayers, then it makes perfect sense why Alliant or Excel or WEC and Dairyland Power and all of these
ATC.
utilities are building out massive solar farms. It's because they are permitted by Wisconsin statute and the regulatory body, the PSC, that's the Public Service Commission, who decides, how much, revenue they can collect from consumers. They like building solar because, hey, we just spent $100 million. We get to not only recuperate that expense, but in addition, we get to get 10% in additional revenue based on the value of that project.
Yeah, so let me just reiterate real quick. So when power companies are generating electricity, they incur costs to produce that electricity. They get to recoup that cost directly from consumers, but not a penny more. That is just, even exchange. Now, companies need to make a profit in order to stay in business, so they aren't getting their profit from generating the electricity. The state, which decides how they collect their profit, has determined that whatever infrastructure you build to produce the electricity or support it, whatever capital cost you incur, you will be able to add a percentage on top of that and charge that directly to the customers.
Yes.
So from the power company's perspective, the more it costs them to build power plants or solar panels or whatever it is, the better they are off. The less efficient those capital investments are when it comes to generating electricity, the better it is for the power companies, because then they have to build more of them and make more profit. That is the system. That is not a free market economic system. That is central. That is a command and control, centrally regulated economy. It doesn't work. That is a prime driver of why electricity prices and energy prices are just so expensive here in Wisconsin, is because of that ridiculous government formula that has incentivized the wrong thing from our power companies. Yeah,
and the reasoning behind the way this is done is, I guess the thinking is that, if we tie their profits to new infrastructure, then utilities will make sure that they're building, the latest and the best, technology. They will upgrade their grid. They will upgrade their, power generating facilities, their power plants and things like that. So we'll always have reliable electricity. But like you said, if a utility company has a choice between building a 100 megawatt solar farm and a 100 megawatt coal power plant, and they cost the same amount of money, then you'd expect a utility would be indifferent between the two, right? They have the same capacity, 100 megawatts, and they cost the same amount of money. Yet all of these utilities are, when they have the option, opting to build the solar. And it's because the solar isn't going to produce its maximum potential. it's only going to produce a quarter of its maximum potential. So what does that mean? That means they get to build 4 times as much to generate the same amount of electricity. And so you as a consumer are, in that scenario, being charged 4 times more than you, in terms of profits, right?
Yep.
4 times more than you otherwise would be if they chose to build a coal plant or a natural gas plant, which is actually going to produce at capacity, and thereby prevent your rates from going up. But
Yeah.
your rates are going up because they're building more and more of this inefficient solar, which is more expensive, more resource intensive, requires more new new electric transmission lines. And so it enables them to really take advantage of the statute to earn profits by building.
Yeah, and that's important too, because a lot of people with these solar projects that are popping up, they're asking, well, how does this increase, how does this impact me? How does this hit my bill? And then, if they take it a step further, they're thinking, well, it costs a lot of money to run a coal-fired power plant. You got a lot of people, a lot of machinery, a lot of, you have coal and railroads and all that. Electric, solar panels, you just throw them out in the field and they're generating electricity for free at that point.
Yeah.
Well, again, it doesn't matter what it costs to actually produce the electricity. All that gets recouped.
Yeah, the utility doesn't care what the costs are. They will be made whole. That is written into the statute that utilities will be made whole, and on top of that, be permitted to earn some profit.
Yeah. So all things equal, yeah, it's solar is not free electricity.
No.
I think that's the point that we have to continually make is it is not free. It costs a fortune to manufacture and install these things. Once you actually set them up, they're completely inefficient. Like 5% efficiency here in Wisconsin.
Oh yeah.
So
0% in the wintertime right now. I mean, these. Yeah, solar panels don't make any sense in Wisconsin. Solar panels only make sense in 2 places: Southern California and Nevada. Or, sorry, not Nevada, Arizona, and maybe New Mexico and parts of Texas, because the intensity of solar radiation in those places, because they are closer to the equator, they get more direct sunlight. The energy that these panels are able to collect is higher. In Wisconsin, we do not have the solar energy availability. We're too far north, which also explains why these, at least for the most part, these solar farms tend to pop up in southern Wisconsin, because the utilities know that they at least need to try and get as much electricity from these things as possible, right? Otherwise, it would be too blatant. It'd be too revealing as to what their real motivations are. They're not going to all build them at the northern part of the state where they produce 0% of their potential.
There is a public relations component to this. You can't be in a blackout for 29 out of 30 days a month and then get a $500 bill for that one day.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, renewable energy, a lot of people are getting rich off of it, and it ain't you. You're the ones paying for it.
And can I just add one last thing, which is that there's, on the PR side of this, what you hear from universities and utilities which is that solar technology is really, really advanced and it lasts a long time. That solar panels are rated to last for 30 years. They last 10 to 15 years, and their lifespan is decreased the more extreme the temperatures are. So in Wisconsin, we have extreme temperatures in the winter. That degrades the material. That degrades the efficiency and the output of those solar panels. And same thing in extreme heat. Actually, you see in Southern California that, and even other countries too that are closer to the equator, that the lifespan of solar panels in those places is diminished and reduced because the solar radiation is so intense. So what you actually have is They say solar panels last 30 years, but they last on average between 10 and 15, which means what? Utilities get to say, well, we're building these panels and they'll last for 30 years. Uh-oh, they crapped out after 15. Guess we have to build more.
Yeah, exactly.
What
a great situation for them. All right, so to keep on with our educational podcast here, one of the big arguments, so with ROFR being introduced this week, people that support it are pushing out all their promotional material to support it. I mean, I like to talk about business, so this is one that just kind of like, I got this newsletter in my email this week, and I jumped at it. So this is the first flyer, and the key argument here is, when you build a project, so when we're back on power lines, you build these projects, so you got all your material and labor costs, and they're claiming that it's going to cost $640 million, no matter, regardless of whether it's ATC or somebody from out of state. And then they talk about the overhead costs, and or they add the overhead costs, and they say, oh, if it's ATC, all that overhead cost stays in Wisconsin, and if it's somebody out of state, all that overhead cost goes out of state. So the net benefit to Wisconsin is $400. Now, this is painful for many reasons. One, Mike, you and I were talking about this. First of all, this is a straw man argument.
Yes, big time.
To create a hypothetical competitor and telling us how much that competitor is going to charge us. How about we throw it to bid and let's let the competitor tell us what it's going to cost.
Right.
So that's one. The second one is the idea that the overhead stays in Wisconsin, so that's a benefit to Wisconsin. That money ain't going in my pocket. It's not going in your pocket. So if that money is being spent in Wisconsin, that doesn't, everyone's got to pay electric bills. Not everyone's going to get a cut out of that overhead money that's being spent in Wisconsin. So there's another problem. But here's the ultimate problem is, apparently the people that put this together don't know what overhead is, and they're counting on you not understanding it either. So we're going to go through a little instructional here. So when you are putting together when you're doing a managerial accounting, when you're putting together your budget, you got three big items. Direct material. Those are the construction materials that are going directly into the product that you are building. You've got your direct labor. Those are the people actually turning the wrenches, actually building the product that you are selling. Then you've got overhead. What is overhead? Overhead is everything else, all of the indirect costs, all of the incidentals. So a big one right out of the gate is the supervisors. So the guy sitting in the trailer who's trying to look at the blueprints, making sure that the guys are screwing in the right screws and putting the towers in the right places. They're on site.
Yeah.
That is not somebody out of state. I get the feeling like when they're saying overhead, they want you to think, oh, it's some big corporate headquarters building in another state that all that money is going to. No, this is most overhead is happening right on site. So we've established supervisors. Here's another one, storage space rent. So when you've got a big construction project, all the girders, all those cables, they just don't magically appear as your direct labor guys are stringing them up and erecting those towers. You've got to stage them somewhere. Mm-hmm. You got to pay somebody to let you stage them where you choose to stage them. That's rents.
Yep.
That is overhead.
Yep. Next,
we have got fuel. So this is you've got all these construction vehicles. You gotta fuel them up. You gotta go to the gas station. You aren't going to be bringing in tanker trucks to fuel up all of your vehicles on site. Guess what? They're going to Quick Trip at the beginning and the end of the day to fill up.
Yeah.
That's overhead that's staying in Wisconsin. It doesn't matter if it's a Wisconsin company or not. Hey, here's another one, trash removal. Yeah, these, you are playing with Legos here. When you're putting together a major construction project, there's going to be a lot of waste. You got to cut things, you got to saw things, you got to drill holes. There's going to be shavings from drilling those holes. You're going to have dunnage, all kinds of things that need to be hauled somewhere.
Yeah.
You ain't hauling it out of state. You're paying somebody locally to haul it away for you to a local dump. You are paying for all of that here in Wisconsin, whether you're a Wisconsin company or not. Latrines. Yeah. You ever drive past a construction site on the highway? There's porta-johns. That's not an out-of-state expense. There's somebody locally that has been subcontracted to provide that service for the construction workers. Again, that's overhead, and it's overhead that's getting spent here in Wisconsin. And then equipment rentals. This is another one where, look, you see a big construction project happening. You see cranes. You see all kinds of specialized equipment. A lot of times the construction company doesn't own all of that equipment. It's getting rented from another company.
Yeah.
Which is, you're going to go with the best price if you're the construction company. And big part of that is going to be proximity, because you're probably paying for the hour or the day for how far away you want to use it from the company. So it's in your best interest to use the company that's right here in Wisconsin. So that's a quick crash course on what overhead is, and why it's kind of it's not really an argument to say that we need a Wisconsin-based company to do these projects so all the overhead stays in Wisconsin, when clearly it doesn't matter where the company is headquartered, the overhead is staying mostly in Wisconsin.
And in addition to that, so the pro-ROFR stuff that has been circulating, it's all based on a report, not a study, a report that was commissioned by ATC. And just to give you an idea of really the author's own hesitancy to really be proud of the conclusions that he draws, if you read this original report, which I have linked in my article, ROFR's Back. This is what he says in his introduction, in his summary. He says, all of the underlying assumptions related to this hypothetical new transmission line were proposed by ATC, and Mr. Felsenthal, the author, is not opining on the reasonableness of these assumptions. So the argument that is circulating is based on a straw man. The assumptions are incredibly tortured in order to arrive at the conclusion that ATC wants, which is that you should pass ROFR because we're cheaper, and if we build stuff, then it'll end up lowering rates for Wisconsinites. Here's what ATC actually needs to have done, okay? In their paper, they compare themselves to a hypothetical company without any real numbers, right? But that company, importantly, is a new developer, and they restrict the project implementation costs. And they have another assumption, which is about this overhead stuff, is they say new developers can't share their overhead costs regionally. So under MISO, for these multi-value projects, MVP projects are one type of transmission line that is subject to the competitive bidding process, okay? And it's those projects that ATC wants the monopoly on via passing ROFR. So their assumption is that a new developer can't share these O&M costs. MISO allows you to share these costs. It'll be collected from other states in the grid. So we would collect rates from Minnesota and from Michigan, Iowa, even parts of northern Texas, and so on. Anyone who's in the MISO grid, but only a portion of those. But it's not true that they can't share their O&M costs. MISO allows new developers to place bids, and one of the requirements, one of the things that is considered by MISO in selecting the winner for a bid is the O&M costs. So if these O&M costs were so important to determining the overall cost of a project to ratepayers, MISO wouldn't even allow new developers to place bids, but they do, and new developers do place bids. And the main problem with ATC study is that new developers are 1% of the players in the game. ATC needs to show that they're better than the other 99% of players, which are other incumbent electric transmission companies, companies just like ATC, who have been in the game, who have O&M expenses from which to reference, right? Where it is unambiguously the case that they can estimate their operation and maintenance expenses and would be able to share these costs regionally. But ATC doesn't look at that. And the reason they don't look at that is because this is the only scenario in which they have an argument to support ROFR.
Yeah, it's it goes back to what we were saying at the beginning. This is what our price is, and this is what the leading competitor is going to charge you. Now let's hear from the leading competitor. Let's let them put in the bid. Let's see what deal they're going to offer us. I mean,
yeah, and
I've been to the GM dealer repair shop where they tell me, oh, anyone else in town is going to charge you twice as much for these brakes.
Yep. Yeah, so it's some really loose and generous in favor of ATC assumptions that are at the basis of this entire pro-ROFR initiative.
All right, so we're definitely going to be coming back to that issue a lot, but let's move on to another big story that just popped up the past couple days. Ever's MPS audit details inefficiencies, outdated systems, and more. So, Milwaukee Public Schools, big financial crisis last year. It was coming to light right as they were going to referendum for $250,000 a year. They were missing state deadlines for aid, for reporting requirements. Just a lot of fiscal mismanagement. The superintendent resigned. So Evers, trying to, show some leadership, stepped up and said, I'm going to order 2 independent audits, not only to figure out why they're missing their state deadlines, but another one to figure out what's going on at that central office. So we got that report back this week. It was a 41-page, quote-unquote, operational review. And we'll come back to, so also it was announced this week that the former Boston School Superintendent, Brenda Casalias, will be the new MPS superintendent. So, first of all, I mean, my opinion is that report is not a plan for improvement. It is an obituary. It is, the organization is just so messed up. I don't know how you untangle this. It talks about the org charts, and corporate structures get very complicated right now these days because I mean it's not that just nice line graph of here's the president, here's the superintendent, so then we got our 2 vice superintendents. I mean it's not nice and orderly like that anymore because you've got all these cross-functional teams. Every organization has cross-functional teams, so. You've got your primary duty of working in HR, but then you're working on all these other initiatives, and you're reporting to 4 different people on different project managers. That is just reality in any corporate setting these days, and also any large organization like this.
Yeah.
So you can't get around that. But MPS they never quite had a clear understanding of how all those pieces were supposed to work together. So now they've got a couple hundred people that are just in the central office. They have no idea who they're supposed to report to on any given day. They're constantly changing things to try to fix them. It's, all the reporting requirements, all this stuff just, it's not working. It is a tangled mess. So I don't, in 2 years, this is not going to get resolved. MPS is too big. There's too many incompetent people involved in it. That's my assessment. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, it's they're running into a number of classic economic problems here, which is they are starting or have been experiencing increasing costs to scale, instead of, economies of scale, right, where you become more efficient as you get bigger, right? So now they're on the bad side of that, where they're so big that they're becoming more and more inefficient because of their organizational structure. It's not a hierarchical organizational structure. It's more like a flow chart or something, right, where leadership isn't clear. And then the other problem, because they are so big, there's a knowledge problem. They don't know who everyone is. They don't know what everyone does. They don't know, every department or sub-department or committee or team that deals with everything. And because they don't know that, they have the added difficulty of not being able to communicate anything to anyone because they don't know who they should communicate to or what they should communicate. And you can't necessarily assume that when you are sharing information that the other people who are maybe more important or who make decisions understand that information. And they're essentially a little Soviet republic.
Well, yeah, that's it's getting too big and it just collapsing in on itself. And I think it's important to also point out that this isn't an MPS specific problem. MPS is just the biggest, most cumbersome one. But this goes back to a lot. How do government organizations grow? Because MPS wasn't always this big. They've grown.
Yeah. And
government organizations like school districts grow for different reasons than a private company does. A private company, you're making, you've got a portfolio of products. Product B is selling more than anything else, so you start pushing some more money in to expand capacity to build more of product B.
Yeah.
For government, it doesn't work like that. It's not, we're doing real, we need to put more, math scores are suffering, let's put more money in math. No, it's the reason why a school district grows is because the federal government or the state government says, hey, we've got a grant for you if you want to establish a DEI program or a technology program or whatever initiative, and a lot of it's human resources garbage. And it's like, oh, well, we got to take that money. Now we got to hire 3 people to do this. Now where do we shove those 3 people? Yeah. So it's artificial, unnatural growth. And so it's kind of like, as opposed to like a nice healthy organism that just naturally grow, and you've got essentially just all these all these tumors just growing on top of each other.
Yeah, they exist outside of the price system. A private business responds to profit and loss, and they have that ultimate constraint, which is revenue that they earn from consumers. If you're a school district or a government, you get the revenue no matter what. Right? You don't get to opt out of these things. You are coerced to fund them regardless of performance. So there is no check being imposed on them by consumers, which are parents and students.
Well, that's who you think the consumer is. The consumer is the government. That's the customer.
Yeah,
so you're going to do situation. Whoever's giving you the money. The government's giving them the money.
Yes.
So that's what happens. I mean, the parents and the students. I mean, they should be the ultimate stakeholders in this arrangement. But no, they're kind of the student's kind of a product.
Yeah. But yeah, they don't have that feedback mechanism that private industry has. They don't have to worry about losses. The losses are covered. They just respond to their profit opportunity, which are additional grants and things like that. So they're constantly incentivized to grow in order to get those profits, which ultimately come with strings attached saying, create this department, these positions, hire this many people, and so on. And it just confuddles, confuses, it confounds the organizational structure. And so it's a negative feedback loop.
Yeah, so I mean,
or a positive feedback loop. I guess is what it is. It gets worse and worse and worse.
So it doesn't. Yeah, so I mean, it's the very operational framework of how government institutions work. There's just this is not going to get fixed. And nobody expects this to get fixed. Here's your 41-page plan. This is everything that needs to be fixed. Nobody has any expectation that's going to be fixed.
Yeah.
In 2 years, Brenda Cassialis is going to leave MPS for another opportunity with a big bag of money, and none of this will have been accomplished.
Yeah. And then another thing I want to add, Friedrich Hayek's chapter in The Road to Serfdom, Why the Worst Get on Top, totally applies here, because MPS started small, as you said, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Well, the bigger it gets, the better it does at attracting all the wrong people. How many people step down? I mean, from their positions.
Revolving door. Yeah.
Right? They understood that there was a lot of potential for them to personally benefit from, working in the school district and, making it worse and going after these things and so on. So it was almost doomed from the beginning, because you're attracting the wrong people when you have an institution like this, which doesn't respond to profit and loss, and isn't accountable to the ultimate consumer.
Now speaking of getting the right people, I mean, look, there is nobody. This is a business problem, and yeah, it's a nonprofit government business, whatever you want to, however you want to categorize it, but this is not going to be solved by somebody with a PhD in education. They are in over their head. They don't have the talent. They don't have the skills. They don't have the expertise and knowledge, anything that it takes to turn around an organization that has completely done a faceplant like this. If if Governor Evers was really serious about this, and actually this isn't really even his choice, it was, the school board. If they were serious about this, they would have brought someone in from the private sector. Top of the line, somebody that works for $1 billion consulting firm, or, has, taken over, failing businesses and turned them around into huge profit centers. Like Herman Cain, if he were still around.
Yeah.
But that's never, that wasn't even an option. That wasn't even, a thought in the back of their mind that should be an option. Mm-hmm. I will give, one thing from that report that I saw that MPS could do tomorrow.
Okay.
You talk about their DEI department and how disorganized that is. Mm-hmm. Eliminate it. Fire them. Get rid of that entire department. Because not only is it inefficient and it's, everyone's tripping over each other in the district office, in part because of this, you're going to lose all your federal funding. You think that the Trump administration is going to keep on sending you checks when you have a DEI program in direct violation of their anti-DEI policy? Count on that money being gone. So, and again, I've mentioned this before, with how property taxes work for school districts. You've got your levy limit for these school districts. And that levy limit is filled up by property taxes and by state aid. So if state aid goes down, property taxes go up. That's just automatic. That happens naturally. That federal aid, those federal grants, that's all money. That's all gravy on top. That has no impact on property taxes. Mm-hmm. So MPS, if you need that money, you need to get rid of DEI like yesterday. In fact, it should terrify you that anyone is talking about this publicly. It should terrify you that's right there in their report that you have a DEI department still.
Yeah.
All right. Staying on the topic of Governor Evers and our schools. Governor Evers has declared this to be the year of the kid, and he wants every kid in Wisconsin to get a free breakfast and lunch at school. Somebody posted this on social media a week or two ago. This is from the Kenosha School District. This was her kid's lunch. She was talking about how her kid had to go all day because because it's disgusting. I mean, you can't see this on the radio, but this is a freezer burnt hamburger patty on a slice of American cheese. I want to throw up just looking at it.
Honestly, it looks worse than freezer burnt. That looks green on the side there.
So you want the government to feed your kids? This is what you should expect. And her quote though with this, and this was real quick. This was posted on all these conservative websites, on all these conservative pages, like Wisconsin conservatives. This is on their page. A lot of people commenting about it. The woman that initially had posted this, she posted on her private Facebook account, but she didn't have any controls in place so anyone could share it anywhere, and that's how this is spread around. Her quote after complaining about this is, "To those saying just send a packed lunch, unfortunately, not everyone has that luxury. Remember, it's not about you, it's about the kids, their health and educations." I'm not going to dox anybody here, but the woman that originally posted this, total party girl. You click on her profile, I mean, it's just all high angle shots, duck lips, piercings.
Latest iPhone.
Tank tops, getting all dolled up to go to the clubs. And she's also got, pictures of her kids that are right there front and center. It's obvious she's a single mom. Her 2 kids are teenagers. So between the 3 of them, they cannot figure out how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. This is, I think it's really important to lay these cards out because, again, I've been talking about this ever since the year of the kid. Governor Evers, I just want to feed every kid a free breakfast and lunch. Don't you want to feed hungry kids? No, it's not your job. It's not the government's job. And this is the disgusting result that you're going to get if the government does feed your kids. You don't want the government feeding your kids. This is the parent's role and responsibility. This is a fundamental aspect of being a parent, not going to the club. It's taking care of your kids. And guess what? Well, if your kids are teenagers and they can't make themselves a sandwich, you have additionally failed as a parent because not only are you not making them lunch, you have failed to equip them to be able to make their own lunch.
Yeah. I just wonder, when the kids come home from school, how they live to see the light of day. How do they wake up in the morning? What do they do for food, for sustenance when they're at home?
Yeah, do they just?
How are they fed? Do they just fast until they go to school? I feel terrible for the mother. She's been fasting for what might be 16 years now. How has she survived? They can't make food. Okay. First of all, you shouldn't be making your kids lunch,
especially when they're teenagers.
Especially when they're teenagers, but. You have a 4-year-old, they should be able to fry an egg, turn bread into toast and really basic things and make a PB&J sandwich. But, I mean, if you don't feed your kids, that's negligent and you should be investigated. And it's totally just laughable that sending a kid to school with a pre-made lunch is a luxury. This woman has no concept of what a luxury is.
This is great. I'm glad that you brought this up because I actually found common ground with a liberal on social media over this.
You're going down in history.
Well, yeah.
Congratulations.
Well, it's the Socratic method.
Okay.
So
they fell for it.
Yeah. So
they probably don't know what that is, so they couldn't see it coming.
Yeah. So, Governor Evers, you're the kid. We got to feed all these kids. And I simply asked, why don't their parents feed them? And, so the liberal took the bait as because, a lot of parents, are negligent and they aren't taking care of their kids. Why don't the DAs charge those parents with child neglect?
Yeah.
They should.
Yeah. Where's CPS?
Yeah.
We put out all these hotlines for mental health and, suicide awareness and all this stuff. How about CPS?
So not feeding your kid is a felony, Class G felony that falls under child neglect. If a child is showing up to school for, say, an entire week without food, without lunch, obviously not being fed at home, this is a problem. This is you send the police to the parents. You arrest those parents.
Yeah.
I mean, there seems to be it's this getting a little bit more philosophical here, but I mean, there seems to be, the government has a vested interest in keeping kids with bad parents like that, bad families. And this goes back to my whole thing where a liberal judge will let you off for anything as long as you didn't kill anyone. That's like the one line that they can't cross. So if kids are being, abused, neglected at home, just as long as that kid doesn't die, liberals are good with that. Because what that means to the liberal is that child now will have to turn to the government for everything that kid needs. That kid will now develop a relationship with the government that they should be having with their family, but they are now being programmed to go to the government for everything. So from a liberal government perspective, you don't want good, strong families that take care of each other. You want dysfunctional families like that. So that is why I believe that a liberal district attorney doesn't want to charge these kids with child abuse or child neglect. That's why the schools don't want to out these parents for neglecting their parents.
Yep.
So
They are the core defenders of the system. And really what this reveals, and, it's speculation, but I'm right. I'm going to be right.
I'm sure you
if
are.
If we were to follow up with this person, this woman doesn't like her kids. She doesn't care about her kids. She does not love them. Any parent that says that sending your kids to school with food is a luxury does not like their kids.
Yeah.
What else can you take from that? And as a parent who loves their kids, you would do absolutely everything in your power to make sure that your kids are taken care of. And yet, you're going to send them to school and say, I hope the food's good. Good luck.
Yeah.
If not, maybe we can DoorDash something when you get home, but, don't count on it. I might not be here.
So sticking with our instructional theme today, got a quick video here that that can help party girl single moms out there with how to fix this situation.
Okay, how we make peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Let's check the recipe. We got to spread the peanut butter onto the bread.
Right. Spready.
You're good at this cooking.
Yeah.
Now spread the jelly on the other piece of bread.
Okay, spready. On the bready.
Somebody done this before. Now we put them both together.
Okay, here we go.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Wow, 30 seconds. Even a puppet can do it.
Some of us don't have the luxury of time, Bill.
Well, Mike, I'm so glad you said that, because for people that don't have 30 seconds, here is an even quicker instructional video.
Sylvan Telly took some sliced bologna, a wedge of cheese, some lettuce, and some bread, and said,
I'll make myself a sandwich.
How was that? That was 10 seconds.
Some of us don't have the luxury of a fancy private school education, Bill. I don't understand it. You're going to have to run it back for me one more time.
So,
yeah, this is just crazy. Just harking on the luxury aspect of this comment again. People have been feeding their kids for literally all of human history. 100 years ago, 200 years ago, kids were fed. Here in America, there was no famine. I mean, what do you mean? An American today does not have to work and can live comfortably in government assistance housing with free health care, subsidized insurance, food stamps, SNAP, cash payments every week. You can get a cell phone, Wi-Fi. Literally, any one of us right now could completely abdicate all of our duties and responsibilities to those around us, and you will be completely maintained or financed by the state.
So yeah. So I mean, this and that, like I was just saying before. I mean, that just strengthens those bonds by encouraging negligent mothers to not make their kids sandwiches for lunch. And also, I got to point out, I might not look like it, but I am Gen X. And my parents took good care of me growing up, but as a whole, we're called the latchkey generation because our parents, most parents both were working. The kids came home from school. They had, they all had their house key, their backpack. They opened it up. They made themselves a peanut butter sandwich when they got home from school.
Yeah.
They watched TV. They did their homework, all without supervision. I don't know where we've lost this sense of independence and self-reliance.
Yeah.
But, I'm glad to know, though, Mike, that you as a, you're a millennial, right?
Just barely.
Barely.
1996.
So you as a millennial, your parents were still teaching you how to take care of yourself.
Yep. We were talking about this before, but when I was really little, kindergarten, I think by first grade I was probably done with this, but kindergarten, I had to make my sandwich and my mom would, have some snack things that she would have gotten from, grocery shopping, and she could say, you can have, one of these, you pick, right? Make my own lunch. But then by the time I was in first grade, I had to pack my own lunch. All of us had to pack our own lunches. You made your own sandwich, you grabbed a banana, an apple, a string cheese, a Chewy bar, Nutri-Grain, Nature Valley, whatever it was, right? And that was it. And you threw it in a plastic bag, and you brought it to lunch.
I want to hear
you
from-
brought it to school.
Yeah. I want to see Telly
very
do it.
simple.
Just to reiterate here.
So then Telly took some sliced bologna, a wedge of cheese, some lettuce, and some bread, and said,
I'll make myself a sandwich.
So yeah, if Telly can do it, so can you.
Yeah, this is negligent. I mean, you are doing a great disservice to your kids and also to yourself if you are not, first of all, doing the bare minimum and making sure that they are fed, but secondly, not preparing them for adulthood and preparing them to be capable, self-governing individuals who take care of themselves and know how to do really basic things like feeding themselves and basic cooking and hygiene and things of this nature, doing their own laundry, putting away dishes. I mean, these are natural and essential things that you teach to children. And people seriously overestimate really the quality of people today. I'm not saying this is true for everyone, but the number of really, truly awful people is much higher than you think it is. And the number of really, truly awful parents that are out there in the world is much higher than you think it is. I would be willing to bet that most parents have one kid that they do not like at all.
And the kid probably knows it too.
Right. And those are, and then there's a subset of parents who don't like any of their kids at all, and simply want them gone, right? Who want to do the bare minimum, which is make sure at least on paper that they're taken care of. Make sure you're getting, check from the government and, everything looks good, but then, cry about how tough, life is.
That's right. Get some attention. I mean, like I was saying before, just as long as the kid doesn't die, government's gonna let the kid stay with the negligent parents.
Yeah.
So.
Only in a first world country do people complain about the difficulties of life this much.
All right, so we're going to wrap it up for this week, but I think we're going to have to keep coming back to these topics. I like this instructional format a little bit where we're giving you, news you can use. So hopefully everybody learned something by watching and listening to the MacIver Report this week, at least how to make a sandwich.
Yes. Teach your kids how to make a sandwich and fry an egg. It's good for them, and it's good for you. Sorry, Bill, can I just add one last thing?
Go ahead.
Because I did say it's good for parents. If you don't like your kids, you can learn to love them, okay? Taking care of someone is one of the best ways to do that. It is one of the best ways to build affection.
Or at least give them the tools so they can become self-reliant so you don't have to worry about
Right, yeah.
So a lot coming up next week. Governor's going to be giving his budget proposal to the legislature on Tuesday night. We'll be covering that, of course. Little fun tidbit that I'm going to have to be plugging, early next week. But the governor's agencies all put in their budget requests.
Oh, yeah.
You've heard about our $4 billion surplus.
Yes.
Forget it. We've got an $800 million structural deficit. So
okay.
It'll be interesting to see how the governor approaches this. I'm sure he's got all kinds of intricate. I would say the only way you could fix this is through either increasing taxes or borrowing. Governor Evers, he's got a lot of tricks up his sleeve. When it comes to the budget, he's got more tricks. Tony Evers has more tricks than Tony Hawk.
Wow. Good one.
So with that, thanks again for joining us this week. Be sure to check MacIverInstitute.com for every day for the most recent content, and we will see you next week at the MacIver Report.
so then Telly took some sliced bologna, a wedge of cheese, some lettuce, and some